You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by CBOE. When it comes to trading volatility, trust CBOE, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. CBOE's blog gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/blogs today to sign up for regular updates via email. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means it's time once again for Vol Views, the program here where we talk about all things, surprise, surprise, volatility, a little bit of VIX, some VIX futures, some VIX options, all things in between, maybe a little smattering, a dose of some VIX weekly options, get into all the myriad legion of VIX ETPs and all the other fun stuff going on as it pertains to volatility, including this time of year, earnings time, a little bit of single name vol popping off as well. So we'll get to all that fun stuff. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever exciting, ever scintillating Options Insider Radio Network. And quite a few programs for you guys to choose from. You're listening to Vol Views already, so you can, of course, always get it on the website or via your favorite provider. You can also get the whole network if you want to jump up to big boy status and grab the whole network there. All 15 shows. It's a lot. But if you can handle it, you can grab that, and pretty much any of your favorite providers, including our website and a lot of our partner sites out there as well, carry that fun stuff. Just search for Options Insider on your player of choice. You'll be amazed how many offerings, how many options, pun intended, you may find. And of course, you can always join us live every Friday, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, via Mixlr, Mixlr. That's where we put out the live fun stuff for you guys who are hardcore. You want to sink your teeth into the vol. The moment it's breaking, the moment we're talking about it, you can get it right there. And of course, however you listen, live after the fact, also via our mobile app. We do have to hear from you guys. So check us out if you haven't in a while. And if you got a question, you got a comment, we do have to hear from you guys. So hit us up at the end of the day. You guys are why we do this show. So if we don't hear from you, it's no fun. Thankfully, we get a bunch from you guys. So you keep us busy with your questions and your pearls of wisdom. And joining me on the old program today, first off, he's back from his many and varied travels hither and yon all over the place, back in his titular corner office, where we are joined once again by soon one day Dr. VIX, Mr. Russell Rhodes from the CBOE. What do they call you over there these days, Mr. Rhodes? What is your title over there?
Not a lot of people are talking to me these days. I'm getting a lot of cold shoulders, so they just call me "Hey you."
Oh,
I still don't. I'm kidding about that. I still don't have a title yet. So I just, I'm Russell from CBOE. How's that?
I think you should work for that Dr. VIX title. Just put it on your business card. Call me Dr. VIX.
I'll see if I can slip that one through.
I like it. Russell Rhodes, a.k.a. Dr. VIX, and put a little disclaimer below it. Not officially a doctorate yet, waiting for the final, whatever disclaimer you need to put on there, and then you're good to go. All right, also joining us from a little bit farther afield out there where, when you think of volatility meccas and where the heart of volatility is, you really think the coastline of Maine during the height of their summer tourist season, and that is where we go now, where we are joined by the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to VolViews. 2 weeks in a row. What a record for us.
Can you believe that? So I feel that you guys are hugely lucky. Hugely lucky.
Oh, we are hugely.
I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled.
Hugely.
No, somebody asked me about, what I was going to be doing over the next hour, and I said being talked over by Mark Sebastian. And so I'm very happy.
Andrew, say what you will, Andrew, at least has a little bit less of a penchant for talking over you, and also for obscure and sometimes inappropriate 80s references. So we take the good with the bad as we keep on rolling into our volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Vol Review. This is the portion of the show where we break down the week that was, and in many cases, including this week, still is, from a Vol perspective. Of course, we had non-farms popping off here before the bell this morning. And I'm just going to point it out now because who knows what Vol is going to do over the next hour. But I do believe, Mr. Rock Lobster, you were buying a little more Vol, and I was saying right around 975. And lo and behold, as I say this, we are at 9.79. So about as close to a bullseye on the old VIX dartboard as you can get. And we know an hour is an eternity in the world of Vol. So an hour from now, we could be at 17, or we could be at 3. That'd be pretty crazy, but it could happen. Maybe we'll get to Russell's spreadsheet a little bit later to see if 3 is theoretically possible. But that said, ticking down, 978. Get even closer to that bullseye. So I'm just going to point it out now because by the time we get to the end of the show, who knows what will happen. So there we go. I'll take an early lead toward my victory. How's that, Mr. Rock Lobster? You taking umbrage?
You know what? You shouldn't be taking a victory lap before you have victory. That's the only thing I'm going to say. It's like saying my trade's a winner, but I haven't closed it yet. Oh, it's a winner. It's a winner. Haven't closed it yet. Haven't closed it yet.
That's the one thing you got to learn about the crystal ball. You take your paper profits where they come, sir, because the VIX is a capricious mistress, and it giveth and it taketh away. And before it taketh away, before the end of the show, I wanted to get a little. So there we go. VIX Cash hovering ever so close to my prediction from last week. Gotta love that. The rest of the market kind of playing a little bit of wait and see. They already saw this morning, non-farms surprisingly good, but the market not really doing much. As a result, most of the major indices up fractionally on the day. That's about it, not really much. And yet, all that pent-up non-farms energy coming out of the vol balloon there. Like we said, VIX Cash off over half a handle, 2/3 of a handle actually, right about that glorious 9.75 level. Let's hope it just stays glued there for the rest of the show, so no surprise Hillary email investigations or anything else like in the past, crazy NASDAQ sell-offs, all the other things that have happened over the course of the last half of this show in the recent months and years that have caused VIX to go moving dramatically in one direction. No surprises from the Trump investigation, Russia, none of that stuff. Let's just keep it nice and calm and tranquil for the next hour, and we'll see how things go. But since you are losing so badly, Mr. Rock Lobster, and I do feel for you, I will make it up for you by letting you go first here. What is catching your eye this week from a vol perspective, sir?
This I guess I'll just call it the strange pattern of this kind of ultra low VIX where it almost seems like traders want to get a jump on selling the VIX premium. So VIX futures, maybe Russell has some stat data on this, but it seems like they kind of take the premium out a little bit earlier in the cycle, whacking the futures down, and you get kind of that, the vol products all kind of die. And then the futures just stay there for 3 weeks and just wait to dive right, at the end. The oddest thing is that sort of behavior, which makes trading the vol products a little different than normal. They're just not moving as much. They're kind of stuck in a range, an up and down range, I would say. More up and down range type of trading without really, I'm sure they'll give some premium up, but where do you go when VIX is 976 or where it is right now? So that to me has been a little bit different for VIX, although future premium has been holding up pretty kind of like what I would say historic sort of values. But they're not giving it any extra. So with VIX trading 976, I mean, you're seeing kind of normal values for where August should be about and where SEP should be about. No one seems to care that the VIX is 9. So they're going to give, a couple points to 30-day futures. Will have about $2 in premium, and then $3 in premium, and 60-day futures. But not much more than that. Not much more out of the ordinary, even with VIX in the basement. So people at the beginning of the year, there was a lot more richness to be mined, I think, in VIX. We were discussing that with some clients. There's a put trade that we have learned from somebody who shall remain nameless, but a smart VIX guy just slayed over the last year as a trade. Unbelievable return on that particular trade. It's the kind of returns that like fake option people talk about, where it was really, really good. But there isn't that crazy premium, because remember we talked about at the beginning of the year, the Trump premium, no way he's a single digit VIX guy. And he turned out to be that guy, right? But there was a ton of premium in the futures, but also produced some rich put trades. So now we're kind of in, I just say everything is much skinnier. That will be my my vol thought for trading the volatility products in the futures this week is just things were a little bit more fat at the beginning of the year, and now everybody's just kind of tightening the ship up. Not that bid for volatility premium is a little less, even though I guess you could say relative it's still huge, because you have 3% realized vol, and what the near-term future is 11:30 this morning. The August cycle future is still like 11:30. So, I mean, from a gross point of view, it's still a lot of premium. It's just, 3% vol in the SPX is not very much.
That 3% vol in a utility stock is not very much. That's kind of an understatement. Hey, is our unnamed put trader, did he learn all that from the option pit class that I speak at a couple of years ago?
It
might be the one that said thank you but didn't give me a check for teaching him that.
I think so.
Which I'm fine. You know what?
I wanted it to remain nameless, but Russell does have some pretty darn good ideas. But yes, it was.
I always go to that event with a really good. I really do. It's one of the things that, and I go to that event pro bono, so I don't even have like any option pit swag. But the put trade, that is something I presented there like a year or two ago, and somebody I think took about half of what I talked about and did some work on it, which is what I really want. Yeah. I want people to take the general idea, and he goes, "Oh, we've perfected it," and he seemed very smug about it.
Yeah.
I think I don't know the person's name, but I know I can. Good. I'm happy that that
overall we have traded a variation of it. I mean, but it was a great one. So.
Since you're teasing our listeners, both of you, why don't you give us the outline of what it is, Mr. Rhodes? So those who couldn't make the epic option pit extravaganza.
In very, very basic terms. And Andrew kind of he described it somewhat. He said, the premium sits there and then it falls off in the last few days. Well, at a very high level, basically, if you at some point, and you can alter the days, but at some point the full week before a standard VIX futures expiration, you start to see, as long as VIX doesn't move, you really do start to see the futures give up some kind of fall off a cliff, like you said. Yep. They hold up, and then they fall. And with VIX at very low levels, you can only the risk premium really only gets so narrow until we get very close to expiration. With VIX at 9 or 10. But, the variation on this is either trying to take advantage of the VIX future dropping, which is a very risky trade because we know what can happen. A Hillary email situation or whatever can come up and bite you, or do some sort of option trade, either purchasing a put option that has, for lack of a better way to put it, negative time value based on where spot VIX is. So, for instance, and I'm making up numbers right now, if VIX is at 10 and you've got about 5 or 6 days left to expiration, and the VIX future is at 12, it's very possible that you could buy like a 15 or 16 put for less than $6. And if VIX doesn't move at all, the cash settlement on it or being able to exit it the night before would be worth about $6. So it's just trades like that. If you think we're going to remain in a low volatility environment, either doing an option spread, which I think is the deviation that a lot of people have done with this. I really discourage individuals from just shorting the futures just because of what can happen. But you can always consider doing a calendar spread where you short the front month and buy the second month, and if we do get a volatility event, that'll help you a little bit. But that's really it in a nutshell, and I just probably gave 80% of what I talk about. So I really do present it at a very high level, and then tell people to go do their own work. So it'll be in the next VIX book.
There you go. Stay tuned for Russell's to the latest arm of Russell's publishing empire on VIX to learn all things that he's talking about. But it actually is good stuff, and we've referred to different aspects of that trade. Some of the challenges may be opposed with the VIX futures remaining stubbornly sticky in the front month, and all of a sudden coming off in the last few weeks to month or so. It's been interesting to watch how those futures have reacted. They persisted, they remained bid, and yet they couldn't fight it forever, and eventually inertia overcame them. That said, aside from your VIX put secret strategy, your secret sauce, or anything else catching your eye this week from a vol perspective, Mr. Rhodes?
The odds of a rate hike in December, they're ticking up. Or I'm sorry, no rate hike is actually ticking up using our friends. Since I get to come on here before the guys over at CME Group, I'm going to steal their thunder and talk about their Fed tool. But it ticked up from 53.2% chance of no hike in December to 54.4%. And I find it interesting that we made a new low this week in VIX. We really didn't break 10 until today, and that kind of coincided with the odds of that rate hike continuing to go down.
There you go, stealing all our thunder on TWIFO, sir. But yeah, good stuff. The Fed Watch tool, very popular out there, and we haven't referred to it in a while because it hasn't been watching that inexorably move to zero hasn't been the most fascinating thing. But you do make a good point that it is even lower than it was before. Something to watch, and if you're interested in that stuff, of course, stay tuned for TWIFO coming off at about an hour, about a little over an hour, 1:30 there, where we get into the meat of all the hot options action on the other side of the fence, the futures options side of the fence with our friends over there at CME. Speaking of exchange stuff, the numbers coming out for July. And once again, Mr. Rhodes, surprise, surprise, it's good to be in the volatility in the VIX business. We break down the numbers every month. We do usually overall, but also each of the individual units and exchanges breaks down their stuff. And for this show, we always like to look at what's going on over there at the CFE on the VIX futures side. And lo and behold, yet another good year, up futures volume ADV and total volume up about 33% from this time last year, from July of 2016. So pretty aggressive. The ADV back a year ago was about 4,476 contracts. Fast forward to this year, almost 6,000. Total volume, ADV about 300 a day there. So interesting stuff. The futures lighten it up out there. And again, the lion's share of that out there in VIX land, we'll have to wait and see. Also, I guess maybe we're talking futures. We'll touch on it really quickly. You guys at CBOE making all the headlines this week, because this is another thing that's going to steal our thunder on TWI, folks. That's where we talk Bitcoin. But you guys kicking off over at the CFE, your friends, I guess they're tired of running the VIX roost and ruling all that space. They want to get out there partnering with the Winklevoss twins to sometime, hopefully in Q4, launch an actual cash-settled Bitcoin future. Does that, are you excited about that, Mr. Rhodes? Is that what your next secret project over there is going to be? You're going to be working on that future?
Where's the button?
I was going to say, this is the point where you respond to me.
Okay.
See, Andrew's on. He infects everybody with his mute button problems.
You get on to me about clicking on the keyboard and the googly goo and everything in the background. Therefore, I use the mute button. So yes, we have CBOE has plans to launch Bitcoin futures, and we are teamed up with the Winklevoss twins. And now I get to make a startling announcement. I am resigning from CBOE, and I'm going to work with Mark Zuckerberg to put out a new digital currency exchange that will come out just before the Winklevoss ones.
Will it be called CBOE M&I, just to keep the naming convention?
No, it'll be called, I stole something else from the Winklevoss brothers.
Yeah, it worked well once, right? But, why not go to that mine again?
Do what?
So why not go to that well again? It worked well once for him. Why not?
Stole something from him once, steal it again. I just find that funny. So I did not even see the Winklevoss brothers in our building. So and apparently they're pretty easy to spot. I don't know a whole lot about this. I know that our buddy Jay Cowie at the CBOE Futures Exchange is kind of the he's kind of the lead on this. I get discounted dummies books, so I ordered him Bitcoin for Dummies to help get him up to speed. I do. In all reality, we have been kicking around the idea of some sort of digital currency futures for more than a year. This isn't just something this is something that there has been a lot of planning going on with. I was at a industry outing and bumped into a former CBOE employee who left us about 6 or 9 months ago, who had been involved in this. So apparently, it's I think we also through BATS were involved in, I don't know if involved is correct, but the Bitcoin ETF that did not get approved a while back was planning on listing at BATS, I believe. So we've been paying attention to that market for a while already, and this is just a natural extension of that.
Yeah, it makes sense just seeing the volume of people who are hitting us up now with questions about this and have been for the last, particularly for the last few months. When are we going to be able to trade some sort of listed Bitcoin derivative, given the fact that product, that underlying, has been moving like mad, crazy volatility, splitting, all this crazy nonsense going on out there. People want an actual listed thing. Surprise, surprise. So not surprised that you guys, someone finally leapt into the fray. Not surprised. It was you guys. Really quickly, I usually like to pay these off later in the show, but we do have a poll going right now. Easy for me to find. There we go. Where I asked everybody before the show, I said, what do you guys think of the planned launch of cash-settled Bitcoin futures? I was going to say this for TWIFO. We'll give a little preview now. We gave you 4 choices. Can't wait. I'm not interested. I'm somewhat curious. Or you're waiting for Ethereum. Mr. Rhodes, as our resident CBOE Bitcoin dude here, what do you think's winning?
Well, what is Ethereum?
It's another cryptocurrency. There's a legion of them out there.
Oh, the legion of cryptocurrencies.
That'd be a good superhero comic.
I would say I Can't Wait is probably winning, and it's everybody. Trading has been so dull that I think everybody's looking for something new, and maybe this will get them excited about something new.
Mr. Rock Lobster out there. I know you don't really talk a lot of cryptocurrencies on the coast of Maine. You guys trade wampum out there, but what do you think is winning our polls there?
Wampum, you are funny. We deal in lobster. No. I think people want to see this thing trade. They want to see it trade. So I'm going to say they can't wait. And cash settled is smart. I don't know how. I was trying to think of how you would have a future that would deliver Bitcoins when nobody can seem to. How do you, without the little computer, your little computer miner hat on with your pickaxe in the back of your, your hard drive trying to find some Bitcoins. So very, I find this whole thing very interesting, and what will really amaze me is if it all gets approved, because somehow I think this genie is out of the bottle. I do not know how this is all going to work out, but if it gets approved, I think the Bitcoin genie will be officially out of the bottle. And how it plays out for other currencies and things like that, I don't know. But it once you get approval for a product like this, with a big stamp of approval from the CFTC is that the regulator over the CFE? I don't know which
futures,
one it is.
Yeah, it would be
for the futures.
CFTC.
So, I think ultimately it'll probably help sort of stabilize it a little bit. But how many cryptocurrencies are there out there right now? Like a half a dozen or something?
I think there's more than that. There's quite a few.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is if one is so good, let's make a whole bunch more now. And now what are they? And what's the real value of these things? I don't know. It's gonna. It'll be interesting to see when the options also, obviously they're going to list those at some point. So it'll be a very interesting, volatile thing to trade. And another thing I will say is, I wonder if at one point the trading in Bitcoin becomes so furious that it actually spills over into the volatility in our market at some point. Because right now, if a Bitcoin crashes, it doesn't really do anything to, bond markets here or anything like that. So it's at some point it'll be enough money where maybe it might. We're not there yet, but it'll be interesting to see when the cryptocurrency dance starts to move over into more listed securities. And I guess that's when the government, Uncle Sam, will start to get worried about it. Now, though, it's still a hobby.
That's when they'll jump in. Even though they're already jumping in, a lot of people talking about money laundering, all their fun stuff in those currencies. A lot of people want to see this thing. So our answers for our poll so far, number one, just slightly edging out, I can't wait, is I'm somewhat curious. So people who are intrigued but maybe don't know a lot, or they're going to wait till this thing launches back in Q4, a reasonable approach. 42%, followed hot on their heels, 38% by I can't wait. So you add those two together, you get 80% pretty much in the pro category, which doesn't surprise me given the interest we've seen in this in recent months. People really want to get their hands on something listed and cleared, essentially clear, that they can trade with Bitcoin in it. So this may be the one. Only 17% saying not interested, 3% waiting for Ethereum, or substitute your other cryptocurrency of choice in there if you like. That'll be going throughout the day here, so we'll check in on it later over there on TWIFO in about an hour. Looking at some other things popping off. Of course, we mentioned VIX Cash, like we said, continuing to hover shy of that 10 handle, still in the single-digit range as the show continues. The vol of VIX also kind of remaining pretty much at the same level it was about a week ago, right about 87 or so. So not quite at that floor, that bottom of the trough there around 75, but it's not 125, 140 either. It's kind of just pretty much near the bottom, but not really done yet. We'll keep an eye on that. Skew index creeping up a little bit, up about 8 points from last week, up to about 138. Take of that what you will. A lot of people have different takes on the Skew index. We won't get into that. It's a whole other show. But still, keep with that. Allow you to use that as your indicator, a flag, if you will, starting to creep up there, maybe worthy of notice. The VIX out there, also talking VIX futures. We were talking about those a little earlier with Russell's secret put strategy. The futures kind of interesting out there. Front month to the cash, about a point. About almost 2.5 points, so about 2.4 for 2 months out. So not quite as steep as it has been, but still a little bit of a slope out there in all things VIX futures. Since we're talking all things VIX, let's get to it. I know he's chomping at the bit. He was off last week, so he's been saving it all up for us. Yes, it's time to talk all things weekly VIX options, listeners, because it's time for Russell's Weekly Rundown.
Now, Russell's Weekly Rundown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the segment. You know the drill. It's time for Russell. 30-odd minutes or so of all things weekly VIX options action. Have at it, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, luckily, we've talked about some other stuff because it was really hard to find some things to talk about in the weekly space. One interesting trade on Tuesday, and it's kind of an interesting bet here. Somebody bought I should start out with somebody sold a couple hundred of the August 9th 13 puts and took in 236. and they bought the same number of 12.5 puts for $1.92. So they took in 44 cents, which a settlement under next week, the settlement under 12.5, they lose 6 cents on the trade. Settlement above 13, they make 44 cents on the trade. So, if they think there's something out there lurking that the rest of us are not seeing, they've got a kind of a cheap risk or a cheap risk versus a nice reward. If we get what has historically been still a low level of VIX, 13. So just kind of an interesting strategic use of weeklies. I'd love to know. Maybe they were planning on a volatility spike associated with today's employment number, which we did not get. But otherwise, I don't know if there's anything else between now and next Wednesday morning that you would a known unknown that you might want to be trading. And then Wednesday, this was a really interesting trade. If you think the volatility spike is coming, and it's coming in September, this is a really good trade. Somebody used the August 30th, which are weeklies. They sold the 7,800 of the 15 strike calls for 63 cents, and they bought 7,800 of the 18 calls that expire, the standard September 18 calls, and they paid 63 cents for those. So they actually, they basically, if VIX is under 15 at the end of this month, but we get some sort of volatility event, they've got a pretty interesting trade structure here. So I liked that.
What was the upper strike again, real quick?
The 18 calls.
18, okay.
Yeah, the 18. They sold the 15 calls that expire on August 30th, and they bought the standard 18 strike calls. And if we do, if the thing is, let's say VIX goes to 15, and that's where it is on August 30th. You got to think that the September futures are going to be at 16, 17, maybe even 18, and that there's going to be some they could actually get out of those 18 calls at the end of the month with some sort of a profit as well. So I like the trade because if we do get a volatility, if they're wrong and the volatility event occurs early, I don't think they get hurt too bad. So that's the only two decent trades I could come up with, though.
Not bad, sir. Not bad at all. Those are two interesting ones. Let's move on to the mothership, the big, meaty VIX options, and another interesting week out there as we are looking right now, a little bit halfway through the show, more than halfway through the session. A fairly light day, given the fact that it's non-farms, maybe a little bit surprising, only about 322,000, almost exactly half of the ADV, a little bit north of that, which is 662,000. So just about halfway through the day. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty quiet day out there. The rest of the week, somewhat active, about 500,000 contracts on Thursday. The lion's share of the week coming on Wednesday, about just a tick under 800,000 on Wednesday. Tuesday, 738. Monday, another light day, 370,000. Like we said, the ADV hovering right around 660K right now. That call to put a little bit less, 3.8 to 1 as opposed to 3.9 to 1 last week for all of you out there who are VIX call to put watchers. I know Mr. Rhodes watches that intently, and he gets very nervous the second it is over 3. If you're looking at the hot VIX action, the hot VIX strikes, number one with the bullet once again, thanks to our friend we detailed extensively last week. It's the OC25s, 587,000 of those bad boys. Still number one. Probably going to be number one for a while, but maybe not if our number two keeps going the way it's been going, which are the SEP 20s, 559,000 open on that strike. So less than 30,000 contracts separating number one and number two. And this strike has been kind of just the hot strike, adding over 30,000 just yesterday alone, over about somewhere around 400,000 they've added to that in the past, week and a half or so out there. So that is a pretty hot strike as well. Maybe our friend in Ak also playing in SEP. That'd be interesting, a little odd. But still, that one, maybe by this time next week, that will usurp our friend out there who put on, as we know, that crazy Ak risk reversal last week. I believe it was the 12-15 bullish risk reversal. Selling the put, buying the call, doing that 250,000 times versus selling 500,000 of the Ak 25s. We'll see if this wrestling match can go on next week, if the SEP 20s can rest the number one spot from the AUK 25s. Number 3, we drop off a little bit. It's still pretty active, though. The AUG 30s, 380,000. We used to always joke on here how there's always a 30 strike. This is the first time a 30 in the last couple of weeks. Last few weeks, we've seen 30s popping back up. But other than that, it hasn't been a lot of action for the 30s. So I think maybe we killed that trade for a while here, but talking about it on the show. Number 4, the AUG 20s, 374,000 there. Number 5, the AUK 15s, again, part of that risk reversal I referred to earlier, 342,000. So still size open on that strike. Number 6, the AUG 17s, 332. Number 7, the AUG 35s, 322,000. Number 8, the first put on the list, the AUK 12 put, again, part of that risk reversal, 317,000 contracts. That guy out there with his one trade just messing up all the lists for the foreseeable future. Number 9, the first non-risk reversal put out there, which is the AUG 11 put. So a little near-term action there, expiring on the 16th. Let's see, 238,000 contracts there. And number 10, the AUG 12 call, about 232,000. Total of about 11.8 million contracts outstanding, about 2.5 million on the puts and about 9.3 million on the calls. Mr. Rock Lobster, I mentioned that risk reversal we discussed last week. If you have any more thoughts about that, feel free to weigh in. Or also, have you noticed this just flurry of SEP 20 calls going up? You guys been talking about it in your pitch chat, and what do you think is going on with this? Someone just loading up on that strike.
I think it's the same old thing. Everybody keeps wanting to buy a bunch of calls and hit a home run. I think some of the best plays in VIX we've been looking at actually just boring crap this week, like 1x2 put spreads and stuff, trying to game the settlement. Just because upside wise, I think it's still a rough road to sled. I mean, right now, the only thing that looks like it's going to unsettle the market is some tweet or grand jury something. Other than that, it's just not going down. It's trying. I think it might slow down a little next week just because we've had all this great earnings. Whenever the market, stocks usually have to take a breath, but a lot of kind of upside. Thinking 20s. I think historically, when you've had these great months. You think back to different decades or whatever where, August was real quiet and vol got real low. And then by September, October, Russell can remember, you're like, God damn, why didn't I buy more juice? Because vol went totally to the moon. So I think a lot of that could be sort of the seasonality of, you have the dog days of summer, vol gets low. And you're like, dang, or as a market maker, I go, why didn't I close all my short Vega? And I'm greedy for another couple of points. And you watch it all blow up and you're grumpy. So I think that's a lot of the buying that we've got going on. I mean, because it's 9, VIX is 10, so it should go up eventually, right?
There you go. That's what could possibly go wrong with that mentality. But you're right. It seemed like in the last, I'd say 3 weeks, we have started to see some of this paper starting to come back, where it seemed like for a while there, the entire narrative of 2017 has been how much can you dump in the VIX and where can you do it? And then in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we talked about this on the show, starting to see more. The 1x2 came back for a little while there. We're starting to see some other trades, like funky risk reversal. Now there's someone loading up on these 20s. Starting to see more of these just kind of naked upside plays, which we quite frankly haven't seen in a while. So read into that what you will. Certainly some size money behind this. As we said many times, the network, size money, not always the smart money. So read that with caution. But it is interesting to see that all of a sudden in the last few weeks, more and more of these trades are starting to pile in there. Maybe betting on a little bit of some, shall we say, aggressive reversion there. I wouldn't be too aggressive because it's been quite a while, but sometime finally reverting up into a little bit higher level out there in ye old VIX Cash. And since that time of year, Let's move on into some of the single names. A lot of people are slinging. A lot of vol action to be found out there. All the guys who are wringing your hands, where's the VIX? The VIX is dead. VIX is single digits. Well, single names got you covered. And this time of year in particular, of course, talking about earnings season, some big names popping off earlier this week. Let's start back Tuesday. We saw that fruit company, the other A company. They seem to have a little bit of their thunder stolen recently by Amazon. Everyone's talking Amazon all the time, but Apple's out there too, and they also begin with A, and they've got a lot of action this week. They were pricing in about $6. Excuse me. So right around that. Seems like that's the magic number this cycle, 4.5%. I've lost track of how many big names we saw that were pricing in right about that level. Apple, no different, 4%. They closed right around 150 and rallied up, excuse me, over 6% that next morning, up to about 159. So they were priced in $6. They moved about 9 handles and change. So not bad. And a lot of our listeners were on board with that earlier. They were, in our poll, we asked you guys, is that cheap? Is that rich? And about a third of you saying $6 is cheap. Buy that straddle. So the lion's share of you coming out and saying, yeah, we want to buy that bad boy. So well done there. I've been joking about the premium buyers in our audience, but this one at least worked out in your favor. Another one that kind of worked out was good old Tesla. I should say still is good old Tesla. They popped off on Wednesday. It's usually a name you can be relied upon to deliver some nice volatility, and they did so. They were a little bit north of that 4.5%. They were pricing in at eBay level 7% there for their straddle, right around $22.5. They closed about 325, opened up next morning about 346, so up about 21. I'll save you the math there. So not quite at that straddle level, but then they traded up to about 350, so right about $24 and change. So they did it if you were patient, and of course they're hovering right around 352 right now. So if you held on to it, you did all right. But still, it does go to show how sometimes it can be challenging. We talked before about sometimes you have to scalp and sell and buy to really make that straddle back. Sometimes even if it moves in your direction, if it doesn't get it all right away, it can be a little bit challenging as well. Mr. Rocklops, I know the hardcores, the crazies, call them what you will, over there in the pit chat, were probably slinging a lot of Apple, Tesla, and some other things. What was catching their eye from a single name vol perspective this week?
We had one client that made a fortune in Apple. He had some position where he bought calls, but he hedged with some QQQ puts. So, and then he had the takeoff. So that kind of worked really well for him.
So lobsters on him going forward, you're saying?
Yes, it's lobsters on him going forward. So there was Tesla. There was a little bit of, I think, a short premium opportunity yesterday. We looked at that in the pit chat. Tesla, we don't do much pre-earnings because I don't get the stock, so I don't. That means I just trade it less. I don't. It's what it is. It's a company with a $50 billion market cap, and it. And the probably the best CEO on the planet who can create. I think he's the first guy actually to really invent, spinning gold bars or something. The guy makes gold out of just about anything. So you got to give.
He's an alchemist.
He is, and he is awesome. The word was escaping me, but he is like the, in 1000 AD, you had the guys going around. They were selling iron nails and said, if you put them under your pillow, they'll turn to gold tomorrow. But he actually, I think, has found a way to do it. And I guess his next project, what is that? Will be the burrow or the berry or whatever the heck.
No, I love the name of the company. It's the Boring Company.
Exactly.
Because they have the ability to create tunnels much more quickly than we did in the past. But I absolutely just love the slant. I actually thought he made it up and it wasn't a real company and he was just making fun of Boeing.
Right. And you know what's amazing is how it's not like the guy's not already busy, right? He's got SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City, and he's like, you know what? I'm just not busy enough. It
makes me feel like a slouch.
I work 10 hours a day, and I'm like,
he's like a Bond villain that doesn't sleep.
He is pretty amazing. So
yeah,
and he does it. He's found a good way to. He's found the customer though with the right deep pockets. So for the most part, the U.S. government, they buy a lot of the SpaceX stuff. They provided a lot of subsidies for him to get the car business going. And now the government will buy his Underground Railroad thing. So, I mean, he's smart because he's picked the customer that has the most dough. So, he's a smart guy. What are you gonna do?
His customer, if you think about it, can create money out of thin air.
He can.
So you're dead on.
He is the best alchemist ever. And I never say anything ever, but as of right now, I'm going to say he is the best alchemist ever. He figured it out.
Maybe he did discover the Philosopher's Stone on one of his early adventures, hence his alchemical skills. Easy for me to say. Mr. Rhodes, anything catching your eye outside of Mr. Musk's many forays in the world of earnings volatility?
No.
Well, there you go.
Well, and it's just my intern Lauren has basically taken over doing all the work on the earnings calendar that we put out there. So I haven't been paying as much attention to it this earnings season as I have in the past.
Well, there you go. You're off the hook then, because it's time for our listeners to get on the hook. It's time to check our volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, welcome to the Vol voicemail, the portion of the show where you guys get to take the reins with your questions, comments, insights, slams at the Rock Lobster. We welcome them all here on the old Vol. For Rock Lobster, he gets all the umbrage. Let's start off here. This one comes from Market Maker. I like the handle. He asks, I think this is what we were talking about last show, Mr. Rock, or maybe it was 2 shows ago, Mark. I forgot which one it was. We were talking about XIV, and he's following up on that. We were talking about the fact that, I think it might have been last show, where, this thing spirals out of control. People forget. That's a short index. They could actually run out of money. He writes in and says, if XIV runs out of money, do investors loose their investments? Are they insured agents? I think he meant against. Are they insured against this? Mr. Rocklobster, this was us talking about this on last show, was it not? So what do you have to say for our friend here, Market Maker, who got spooked by our conversation about XIV perhaps going north and AKA going south?
I'm glad they got spooked, because if VIX or the futures do have that massive move, investors just have a poop sandwich. The value of XIV could be, and I think the way it's written in there, the fund manager could actually stop, cover, and decide because they don't want to take the risk on it. So it's in the what do you call it? The prospectus of the fund. So you got to be careful of those short funds, because XIV is up 60 or 70% or some crazy amount this year, for the exact reason that Russell described at the beginning of the show. There was crazy future premium, and those products are shorting the crap out of all the futures, the front 2-month futures in VIX, front 2 serial futures, and they made a fortune. So, I mean, normally when something has a ride like that, it doesn't go on forever. So, but, I thought that at 70 and 80 and 90, I figured we'd get a little bit of vol bounce back, but, so far not for XIV. So, yes, you could walk in one day and you would have no money left in XIV. It's kind of similar if you put all your money into UVXY 5 years ago, you would have no money left there. But now with volatility at the bottom, it would be the opposite effect. So you got to be careful with those. You have to be very careful with those products. I prefer XIV as a bounce type trade. I don't like it as a, there's too much. When it was a little cheapy product and it was easy to hedge with VXX calls and stuff like that, I thought it was a lot more fun to trade. It might be like that again, because you used to be able to, because for a lot of client or customers, it was hard to short VXX. So you could buy XIV in a couple of calls or like 3-by-1 trade, which was really nice for a while to give you an explosion trade, or, if volatility falls apart, the XIV makes a lot of money. So there were kind of cool things you could do with it when it was cheaper, when the price dollar weighted was a little closer to VXX. But now, yes, there's no insurance. You lose all your money and you're sad on XIV if you have 100% gain in the futures. 1 day, 2 days, it would be still a huge drawdown in that product.
Yeah. Basically, for something like that to happen, let's say that the market, that we were at the end of the trading day today, we would need to come in and have the August futures at 22.40 and the September futures at 25.30. So they just basically have to double.
There you go. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
So
I know, but that's really what you need is if the futures double, that means that you're short something that just went up 100%, which means you've lost all your money.
This is a product we've talked about before many times, as Alex, as Andrew just alluded to, not one we typically advocate for a long-term buy and hold in your IRA. But that said, if you want to sit on this one for a while and you have this concern, a few people have hit us up with this, so clearly this is not a small concern. Obviously, you can trade it short-term, get the heck out of Dodge, or if you got to sit on it long-term, if you need insurance, luckily there is a thing called the options market out there. You could, if you are sitting on some gains, you could actually buy a put in XIV to hedge that. So if you are concerned about insuring this thing against going to zero, you can do that yourself. It will cost you some money, but no, XIV does not do it for you. It'd be nice of them to insure all of you against loss, but unfortunately, they do not do that. Speaking of your running your spreadsheets and you're calculating your numbers, Mr. Rhodes, people have asked us if you have your spreadsheet ready. Is it complete and through compliance review, sir?
We will give the results next week on this very program.
So Avery and a bunch of others, including Henry over there, Trader, have all asked about it. So I'll have to put them off for another week. Don't blame me. Blame CBOE compliance. They're trying to keep Russell from giving the goods out too early. Let's see here. So we got time for about one more. Let's do a quickie. Let's see. Quick. That one's too long. This one's pretty long as well. Let's see. Let's go. Let's see. Here's a silly one. We got two Italians on this show. This is just a quick one. It comes from Richard D. He has a long question about UVXY, VXX peer trades. Don't have time to get to that, unfortunately. But he adds an addendum to it at the end, which is kind of silly and quick. He says, just wondering, as an Italian-American myself, why are so many Italian Americans seem to be involved in the options business? Again, love the show's best. Richard. Yeah, me and Andrew, both Italians. Mr. Rhodes, I can't speak for him. I think he's Algonquin. But yeah, there are a lot of Italians, particularly it's a Chicago business. A lot of Italians in Chicago. I'm not from Chicago. I emigrated here, like a lot of people here, to trade on the floors. So we did lure a lot of Italians here. But yeah, a lot of South Side Chicago Italians got into the business just like the Irish and a lot of others down there. So it's not just Italians, but there are quite a few. So yeah, Mr. Giovinazzi, you're not from Chicago either. What lured you out here, sir?
No, when I was working for Group One, we had a DPM open, so they told me to go check. I go, oh wow, I can run my own pit. What the heck? So I was 26 or 5 or whatever. So I said, sure. So that's how I got to Chicago. And I just always thought there was so many South Side Italians. I mean, there's just tons of them. So they just, for whatever reason, that attracted a lot lot of them. So. Just a lot of them on the board of trade too.
The naked avarice of us Italians. That's what it is. We get lured out to the dark side of the pits of finance. Something about that speaks to us, I suppose. All right, good questions, everybody. We got to keep on rolling though. The final segment. It's time for the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, welcome to the crystal ball, the portion of the show where we hold court, attempting to divine what the mysterious VIX has in store for us in the week to come, this time next week at the end of the show next week. And Mr. Rock Lobster, I wasn't too early on my celebration because we're pretty much exactly where we were at the start of the show. So yeah, pretty much number one with a bullet goes to me. I hit that nice night bullseye, which, not even half a handle, 0.05 of a handle. That's pretty much as close as it gets to a VIX bullseye. I think once or twice we've hit it dead on here on the show, but it is a very rare occurrence, so I'll take my 0.05 and I will run with it. So yeah, VIX Cash right about 9.8 right now. And looking here to the week to come, we had non-farms today. That was a big question. How much would that impact things? I didn't think a lot. That turned out to be the right play. We are coming at the tail end of earnings, so who knows how much, if any, real impact that's going to have going forward. Obviously there are the crazy things out there in the ether, like this Trump investigation that continues to seemingly gather legs, whether that might inject some vol next week. But I'm going to say, since I get to go first because I won, I shall say the answer is no. And I'm kind of liking where we are right now. So I'm going to pull a 9.75 2 weeks in a row wager. That said, Mr. Rock Lobster, you were next. Half a handle away. Nothing to sneeze at. Not bad, sir. What are you feeling for next week?
I'm going 10 3/4.
No, you're feeling some juice. You think this Mueller thing is going to get some legs, or what are you thinking?
I'm not sure. I just think earnings are over, and we need a reason to rally, and that's what without a reason to rally, right now, that's the simple answer. Because what do we have? 6.5% vol, 1 month out, 6.5% vol out the money. It's just. It's priced where it's supposed to be because that's what we have, but I think a little bit of something. We'll have a little bit of something for next week.
There you go. You heard it here first on the Rock Lobster. Very technical terms. There will be a little bit of something next week, so stay tuned for that. 10.75 is his prediction. And last but not least, Mr. Rhodes. Last week his ghost was wildly optimistic for vol, choosing a 15. Did not come to pass, I'm sad to say, Mr. Rhodes. So now that your ghost is off board, you're back here. What are you picking for next week, sir?
I'm just going to split the middle and say 10.25 with you guys.
Flopping the script with the Rock Lobster last week.
I am. So.
Not doing any crazy buy-in, of late.
No, I've been beaten down. I'm like those guys that keep buying the out of the money calls on VIX. I give up.
You've heard it.
That's it. That's the top.
That's it.
Bottom.
That's it. Now VIX.
I knew. I gave you guys a softball here.
Russell capitulation equals VIX 20 tomorrow. So, or maybe not tomorrow, but next Monday. You heard it here first, listeners. Unfortunately, you also heard it here last because that's all the time we got for this episode. But before we go, let me check back in with my cohorts, my partners in crime. You heard them mention at the top of the show in the intro there, all the cool stuff cooking over there on the CBOE blogs. Mr. Rhodes writes a lot of that. So, Mr. Rhodes, what is cooking over there these days? If our listeners want to head on over and check out the aforementioned CBOE.com, perhaps the blog section, what can they find over there?
Well, the sabbatical involves me not doing social media for a month. So, there'll be some guest blogs on there, but not a whole lot going on right now. I heard that at the beginning, and I'm thinking I got to talk to them about that. But time's running out on this dissertation if I'm going to get it done in 2017, and the only way it's going to happen is if I take my eye off the market a little bit. So. Not a whole lot going on in August. We're going to be back after Labor Day full force.
There you go. Check out the archives then over there at the CBOE.com blogs. Some great archive material to sink your teeth into. You have some questions about the historic nature of volatility, perhaps the seasonality of VIX. They've written on that extensively there. Go look those up, and you have more than enough to keep you occupied until Mr. Rhodes is done with this dissertation, and then he'll be back in full force. Speaking of full force, you guys are going full force over there at Option Pit these days. What is cooking, Mr. Rock Lobster?
Look for our next Saturday class coming in after Labor Day. You will see it from us soon, and still look at our stuff. probably the best way to learn about options there is. And a lot of people come to us just to learn about risk control. So you gotta, if you run out of money, you can't trade anymore. So you got to start there.
There you go. Check them out, optionpit.com, to learn more. And on behalf of myself and the Rock Lobster, and even Mr. Someday in the near future, Dr. VIX, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience, downloading, streaming, and subscribing to the show. And of course, sending in such great questions. Keep them coming. And we'll see you next week for more Volatility Views.
Volatility Views is brought to you by CBOE. When it comes to trading volatility, trust CBOE, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. CBOE's blog gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/blogs today to sign up for regular updates via email.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.